and to stand together with Indigenous communities who not only have survived genocide, but have the leadership in their survivorship to lead in infrastructure now in renewable and sustainable ways. Wet'suwet'en already has their own infrastructure. Wet'suwet'en already is able to fish their own areas, keep their own land pristine, and know what that means. And it's not okay that Canada has decided to use the Alberta tar sands all the way to the coastline as a way to exploit more unrenewable ways of energy. My husband is an engineer, and one of the first things we were talking about this morning is the ability to transition and how much it's going to hurt the generations before us and the current ones now. But it's not because we don't want to. It's because we're not being backed by the governments who know that it's time. In the climate emergency of now, it's been past time. It's been time to do it for the next generations, the ones that are already here leading and the little ones to come. My greatest accomplishment, I can always say, is being a mother. I'm a teacher, a substitute teacher. I'm a curriculum development developer, if you were, a cultural educator for Indigenous studies, and I've done countless workshops for Four Winds Indian Council, Spirit of the Sun, Peace Jam, One Nation Earth in California, and many more. But one of my greatest things has been being a mother, and that's because I understand the value of caring for the next 7 generations. I don't want my children paying $20 for water or having to fight for clean air, which is what we are already doing. And if you think it doesn't apply to today and ours, it does. Right now in Brighton, Henderson, Commerce City, and Thornton, there are permits being approved without your public knowledge for fracking wells that are all around neighborhoods with families and schools that they literally just developed for families and schools of often targeted and marginalized communities. This same issue of oil and gas is affecting you as much as it is affecting the Wet'suwet'en people. So you need to understand they are first on the front lines fighting a government that does not accept their identity nor accepts their indigeneity and leadership. And now, until it is your turn, are you really going to wait until you don't have that chance to even fight anymore politically? Where it is going to have to take us going out there, understanding what it means to reclaim our earth, or even if we can by that point. So if you care, if you have any knowledge of what it means to care for the next 7 generations, I hope you do stand in solidarity. We will be here all day from 1 to 4. I ask that you remain nonviolent. I ask that you have a narrative to share that you do. And most of all, I am here for very one specific narrative. I have been, since I've gotten back from the Navy with my husband, for the past 3 years, we're here in honor of missing and murdered Indigenous women. It is directly associated to climate justice and social justice. Women that have been missing, children that have been missing, and men that have been missing are often missing around man camps and areas that have been open to exploitation for generations. They are the first victims of exploitation to these lands and still are not protected federally or for their sovereignty. So in honor of those women that go missing and do not have the protection and need it socially in their structures and safe spaces, even those that abuse substances or are unsheltered, I stand in solidarity with Wet'suwet'en, indigeneity, and the importance of having our Indigenous leaders lead in the climate struggle that we know is already existent. If you have anything you would like to say in the next organizations, I welcome you and I thank you for being here. Omato! XR?
Anyone want to speak to XR?
Nika? No? Speak?
So for folks watching this stream, this is Alex with Unicorn Riot. I'm here in Denver, Colorado, outside the Denver Energy Center in downtown Denver, Colorado. There's a group of about 30 folks here right now as part of a solidarity action with the Wet'suwet'en First Nation up in British Columbia, where they are currently fighting the Coastal GasLink pipeline project, which is attempting to be put through by TC Energy, also known as TransCanada, or formerly known, I'm sorry, as TransCanada Corporation.
I'm just going to say a prayer to the Hebrew God, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ. I believe, I mean, I don't know, I'm just going to pray. I think this is spiritual warfare, not anything else. So, Lord, I'd come to you as a humble servant in your presence, and I give you thanks for everything that you do and everything that you've done in all of our lives, Lord. I pray for forgiveness upon your people, and I pray that you have humility and have pity on us, Lord, and have mercy on us, mighty God. I pray for the movement that's going on here. I pray for the hearts of all these people and the minds, that you give them strength and courage and wisdom as to how to go forth and how to proceed and how to win battles, Lord. And I pray and I ask that you soften the hearts of people that are opposing the rights of the human race and for a profit. Okay. Indigenous I thought
So, I hold a workshop in understanding if you're colonized in the next 7 generations, or if you're indigenous in your thought for the next 7 generations. And that can apply to far more than how you pray, to what race you relate to what religion you are. The reason that it's important is colonization, just by its definition, is meant to take resources for just this generation. That way of doing things is already 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. The way that we educate our children in doing that is already 40, 50, 60 years old. But understanding indigeneity and how we preserve our resources and how we educate our children and how we respect other spiritualities is key to healing these issues and understanding climate justice. I introduced Hillary, one of the educators here at CCD and studying right now for her own master's in this way as well. Oh my God.
Thank you, everybody. You know, we're all here today because of the injustice against Indigenous people, and that's where it comes down to. There's a lot going on with Wet'suwet'en, but it's not only Wet'suwet'en, it's happening here. We can't act like there isn't our houseless relatives every day that get criminalized and get ridiculed and their life torn apart, and it's happening here, you know. And it's gonna take more than just walking out and sharing shit on Facebook. It's gonna be taking real action where people have to lock down and really take action, because what are we gonna do when it happens to you or happens to one of us young women or somebody you know or somebody you've seen on Facebook? And right now there's a lot of bad things happening up in Canada, and we need to stand in solidarity. Last night 2 people were arrested in Victoria, British Columbia, and one of them was ran over. And right now, Canada thinks it's a joke to make decals of people getting ran over because of blockades? That's bullshit. I don't care, but we were here and we stand for the land. My people pray. We stand in peaceful prayer. And yet they want to ridicule us and act like we're uncivilized. So I ask and challenge all of you, what can you do? What can you do to reach out to your community to make a difference, to show your true allyship, to stand for what you stand on? My people have been ridiculed our entire lives saying that we're different, our religion, or whatever you want to call it. We're spiritual people. We believe in the earth. It takes care of us. It provides food for us. We drink water. We live on it. We occupy it. We don't want to extract it. Extraction and sterilization has been the tales of my people, but not no more. We're still here. We're standing here. And if you're going to stand here and watch me and take pictures of me, then I challenge you to do something about it too. It starts with acknowledging whose land we're on. This is the Southern Ute. This is the Ute Mountain Ute, Southern Cheyenne, Arapaho, a lot of other people like the Lakota, Kiowa. I hope you guys would all know this and take the interest about where you come from, which part of Turtle Island are you from, and who occupied that land, and what struggle they're going through, because they're probably fighting just as much as we are here today. We fight against the Keystone Pipeline, fight against tar sands, we fight against fracking in Weld County. You know, what else can we do? You know, we can't just sit here and protest and march anymore. We need to take real action. We need to hold people accountable. Yes, go to those hearings, write letters, let people know that we won't take this anymore. You see right now Native people up in Canada blocking the railways, and people are crying out saying that, oh, we won't have this stuff to clean our water, but that's something our people have been having to deal with since colonization has arrived. We have to boil our water. That's a reality for us. You know, so, you know, I just, you know, I want people to know that this is more than taking a day, you know, out of your work schedule, and there's people out here trying to do real work. You know, I went to class before this, and I probably will go to class after this, but it doesn't mean that I'm not using my voice in those classes and these privileges and these spaces that I take up. And, you know, I want everybody to know that too. You know, we're not alone. We're still here. Our existence is our resistance. Be proud. You know, you're making your ancestors proud by being here today. No matter if it's one person standing here or if it's 1,000 people standing here, you guys don't have to lose face. We can't lose momentum, because now is a very critical time. We have to act now. People are acting now. They're being arrested. Red Fawn is sitting in prison right now doing time, you know, for our freedom, for our right to have clean drinking water. So, that being said, Pilamiaya, I appreciate you guys being here today, and I appreciate you hearing my words, and I hope that you guys take it to heart and, you know, keep standing strong and keep that momentum strong. Don't let it stop here. Don't let it stop now. Keep it going every day. You know, challenge those different types of institutes and that systematic racism that all of us face. You know, we are more powerful than they want us to believe, and they know that. So don't let them silence you. Pilamiaya.
Thank you, hermana. Thank you, comadre. Thank you, sister, in this way. So, right now, I want to do a die-in for all those that are dressed up. It's symbolism exactly what it is. Oil and death now. Because that's honestly what's going to happen. And I've been actually honored to see so many Indigenous youth and women show up. The banner that we just rolled out was, they stole the children from the land, now they steal the land from the children. This is a sign not just from here, but to Wet'suwet'en and Wet'suwet'en back. This whole continent of Turtle Island has been dominated and colonized. When is enough enough? So I ask those that are dressed to come in the center and line yourselves up, facing the building.
Can't wait for this part. I know what to do. I remember.
You can spread out sporadically as well. Just don't go up on past it. Yeah, that's fine. Please lay down. Think of the biodiversity that is completely gone from so many mass extinctions man-made. For us to have that in one oil spill is one too many. And yet there have been thousands upon hundreds of oil spills. No more. I am afraid for my children. That's why I care. I fear for my grandchildren, but I'm not going to stop. If it takes bridging all those communities that have been damaged in their infrastructure, then that's what it takes. But no more fragmentation. It does take allies to understand that it is time for the Indigenous perspective to be involved in politics, to be involved in education, to be involved in healthcare, and most of all, to be involved in the stewardship of the earth. We already have been good at it. We understand and respect the balance of the seasons, when you need to grow what you grow, why you do for your people, and the importance of what it means down to your body on a microbial level. That is even what sage means. It's to clean, it's to protect, it's even to expel, if you will, bad things. I humbly ask all of you, go to those public hearings in your local jurisdictions. Understand where they're putting those permits now, because a lot of them are being approved without you even knowing. And I promise you, it's your water, just like it's Wet'suwet'en. The point of standing in this solidarity is to understand, first is them, next is us. And that's how it's always been. The unfortunate martyrism that has happened for missing and murdered Indigenous women should be the first reminder of those victims, of those we can't find. That man camps, even up over there at Enbridge, they built 450-man man camps. Promised 45 jobs to the Wet'suwet'en people, even though they have their own $100 million salmon industry. They didn't need their jobs. They're promising all these things, and then start building all these man camps, and slowly local women start going missing. Stalking and domestic violence from non-tribal members goes up, and it keeps going and going and going. That has happened in the United States since the beginning of its founding. Again, when is enough enough? Will it have to take all of your dead bodies to care too? We don't even want that.
Bury him. You don't want to play dead.
I hope you don't either. So if you fear for your children, your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews, you will understand the importance of this. And with that, I ask for a moment of silence for missing and murdered Indigenous women. Then we will honor them in a song. For any of those that would like to, you may sing along with us, but do not oversing, and understand that these things are still a prayer to us. We still honor these women. Every one of these tags are a woman's name with their age ranging from 6 months to 60. And it says on there whether they're missing or deceased. And that's all Turtle Island wide. That's not even talking about the frontera, which is exactly where they're holding children in cages, including here in Colorado and Aurora, illegally for Indigenous children that have been passing those non-borders for centuries, including my people that have made the Diné Chicano people. I have been here, and my people have been here since before Colorado was a state. And I'm proud to say I'm Mexicana and Navajo and Filipina. An origin of all the people that have crossed that way. I wouldn't even exist without them. And with my existence, that is my resistance. And the representation matters. And every single shade of indigeneity, just like me, matters in the American and Canadian identity. So I ask for a moment of silence. I'll stop it after you say Omato. Then I ask that my sisters here join me in a song. I'll keep it simple. And I thank you all again for being here. If you're one of the organizers, I do ask after that you come and speak after the song. Thank you. So right now, pray any way you wish to pray. Please hold the circle tight.
Would you like
Or create a circle again around these people.
Would you like
Have
recording
decided
to
to take
stop?
their time to stand for something bigger than themselves, which by definition of prayer is intention. So I pray that we all have the same focused intention right now in this moment of silence. Oh, Matawa. Thank you. I'm gonna sing a song and then I'm gonna offer it to my sister or anyone that wants to join. My sister who I keep referencing here is Micaela, Iron Shell, who is a Chugona powerhouse all her own. Do a song for the water, for my people. Yanawana stands for the water in Apache. My husband is Ikaria Apache. I learned that song from my mother-in-law. She helped me learn the Papashkomen, the women of the smoke. And one of the first things you learn is to clean and protect your circle, because it's your life, from the inside, later on to your children, to your home, to every circle that you touch. I humbly honor her with that song and all the women that come before me and all the little ones to come. Amato.
Hi, my name is Shayna. I am originally born on the Navajo Reservation in the Four Quarters of New Mexico, of Shiprock, New Mexico. And my people, my family, we've been migrating here since the Relocation Act, which the Relocation Act was enacted in the 70s where Indigenous people were influenced to leave the reservations. But once we left those reservations, they didn't let us know that you waiver your tribal rights over your tribal territories. So policies like these have been genociding our communities, which is why we don't have strong Indigenous communities. And it's policies that were allowed from the beginning of the organization of the United States. Organizing policies of the Indian Removal Act helped the genocide of Indigenous people as well as their communities. Making these fraudulent acts be legal through policies, which I think are evidence of the fraud that this government has portrayed on Indigenous communities across America as well as around the world. And these same industries are the same industries that attack Indigenous communities in the Amazons as well as in the Africa communities, as well as Australia and all of the Samoa Islands, as well as Hawaii, as well as Alaska, and as well as the Indigenous people of Canada. We all are being impacted by these governmental man-made policies that allow genocide through the acts of these policies they say that are good for us. What's good for us is that we need clean water, we need clean air, we need clean lands for these children. And a part of being about this movement is walking in ceremony, which is one thing that we have all forgotten to do once we've been incorporated through these industries such as our educational systems, made us forget about who we are as Indigenous people and the richness that we have to offer in each of these fields as our education, science, as well as improving development in our communities. Indigenous rights have been stifled through these policies purposely and biasly against Indigenous people and their lands, taking their rights away from them of their own ancestral lands. And why these things happen is because industries like banks fund these industries across our lands. They fund these projects that Wells Fargo is backed by, as well as JP Morgan, as well as Wells Fargo. All these banks are all related, and they're related to the impacts across the world that we're experiencing with these pipelines on Indigenous lands. The Declaration of Indigenous Peoples' Rights has been adopted by the UN since 2010, or since 2008 actually, and finally adopted by the US in 2010. And what we need is allies to be encouraging our legislators to be enforcing Indigenous people's rights. But as well, these rights come short for us under this declaration, because it involves the policies that keep us down in our communities, which is why we need Indigenous people's rights without any stipulations. Because policies that are always speaking down on Indigenous people's rights is actually speaking down on human rights. It's a human right to have access to clean water. It's a human right to have access to clean air. And it's a human right to be able to cultivate on these lands so that we can nourish from it. And that's why I joined Mom's Clean Air Force, is to be at the table, to be in their office, and to be non-violent, because we were never violent in the first place. And being in these offices and being at their tables is more important than getting kicked out. Because every time we're getting kicked out, we're never at the table. We're never in their office. So that's why we need to remain nonviolent. We need to remain respectful. We need to remain peaceful because our ancestors were peaceful. And it's the media that portrays us as radical. It's the media that portrays us as something as violent when we're not. We are subject to these imbalances in the law enforcement every time we go to these hearings. We are discriminated every time we walk into these buildings. We are discriminated before we even sit at the table. We're discriminated before we are even invited. And that's why it's important to be an ally to Indigenous people, because we need you there as witnesses. We need you to be there with us and to demand these rights that is rightfully all of ours. This is all of our rights to be able to live in this world in a healthy way for our children. And walking in ceremony, we got to be there with our hearts. Our intentions have to be with our hearts. And if we can't be there at the table or in the office, what are we doing? What are we doing with our actions if we can't be invited at the table and to speak? We need to be able to be there. And that's why I'm involved and going to these hearings, as well as making it a point to be heard, because Indigenous people don't have that voice in those rooms. Our voice exists just as much as a needle in a haystack, because we haven't been there, we haven't been invited purposely, and our education system have been built that way. It was been built to beat the Indian out of the man. That's what the education was for Indigenous people, to save the man and to be rid of the Indian. That was the model for our education, as well as being taken away from our families, our territories, to be converted to a religion that is not ours, as well as this religion has been a tool to divide the people, as well as divide our communities, and to justify the genocide over Indigenous people, and to justify reservations, to justify how we are unequally treated. So that is why it's important to be involved and to be in those offices and to be invited. And that's why we need you as allies, so that we have that voice and that we have that support. To not have that support is to not be honored. And I would like you guys to join me in our upcoming hearings for 1265, which is the air toxics bill, coming up on March 9th at 1:30 at the Capitol. Again, that's for the hearing for 1265 for the air toxics bill to start addressing the air toxics in Colorado, which we have been we've been leading the poorest air quality across the nation, worse than China. So we need to do something about it. Speaking up about these air toxics is where we need you guys in this state, as well as backing the candidates that speak up for climate action now, as well as speaking up for your children to have a better education and a healthier environment. So coming from the Navajo Reservation, our lands are already devastated with uranium. My grandfather was one of those people that had to mine uranium without protective gear. So many of the Navajo people all have traces of uranium in their blood. We're living with those impacts. I am living with those impacts. We have the highest rates of asthma, diabetes, heart disease, mental illness, cancers, premature deaths, diverse birth outcomes. These are things that are real impacts from these industries. These industries coming closer to our communities is unsafe. And these are the impacts that communities like Suncor and Commerce City are living with every day. Their water quality is very poor and is violated every day. They can't even cook with the water. They can't drink the water. And this is northeast Denver area. We're in the middle of the city and people are living next to Suncor, which is an oil refinery northeast of Denver. And these people have been living like this for decades, being impacted and neglected as if their community doesn't matter, as if their children's schools don't matter. And they plan to move the school closer to Suncor. So I'd like to offer someone else to speak. I really would really like you guys to come out to the hearings on these topics of environmental issues. Again, that's 1265, that's coming up, as well as the Air Quality Control Commission meetings are coming up in May. You can check that out on their website at Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. So those are the places you can check out to advocate for a cleaner environment, as well as speaking up to improve Colorado's air quality, which Indigenous people are forced into these areas where they have bad air quality, because affordable housing is where these areas are left. Affordable housing only exists in these areas where it happens to be Commerce City, northeast Denver, next to the highway. Those are the areas that we are pushed to after we leave the reservation. Because these are the areas that are consistently affordable housing for families. So think about that. Thank you.
This is Alex with Unicorn Riot. I'm still here in Denver, Colorado, outside the Denver Energy Center, where a solidarity action with Wet'suwet'en is happening.
NEPA rally. And if you guys know in NEPA, the issue that's been with lately is for environmental protections. The Trump administration has been orchestrating little by little degradations of policies to a lot of public lands, and not just reservations, but it does have to deal with a lot of areas from Chaco Canyon, Bears Ears, and so many others, including here in the San Luis Valley, which is where my ancestors are from, here in Sangre de Cristo mountain range. I asked that if one of the youth be interested to come up and speak. Speak about whatever you would like to speak on, what this means to you, what you're fearful for your future. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth, standing for Light in the Lodge, and this is my cousin,
Leah Duran.
So we're here spreading awareness about MMIW, Missing Murdered Indigenous Women. We're also representing the colored, like blacks and Mexican. Sorry. So to give you a statistic, 96% of rapes toward Native women do not come from natives, they come from non-natives. And being a woman is already hard because you have to deal with sexism. You have to deal with not being paid as much as a regular everyday man. You don't get the same paying wage. But also being colored, that is a different thing. You're being discriminated and you're being limited to what you can do. So this is why it's really important to serve justice for the missing and murdered Indigenous women. I know what it's like to lose a sister, but I didn't lose one to any of murder or anything, but I do feel the pain of it. So that's what my personal connection is with missing murdered Indigenous women.
We represent the Adams 12 5-star education Native American program, where we help Native people find their way back to their culture again.
Can I ask you a question then? Why is it important to refine your culture and help others find theirs?
It is important because our culture was taken from us, and we try to fight back every day to get it back by protests and other events like this.
This was so important to us to come to that we left to school early because we are concerned about the future of our water and our land and what it's going to be used with, oil spills and such things like that. People, when they think of dirt, they don't really think about what it can do for you, but that's where all our plants grow. What's going to happen after water? What's going to happen to the soil? That's what I think about.
Knowing what's going on in the city like this, what would you want to tell them? You can speak right now to the Indigenous youth there that might even be arrested tonight. What would you say to them?
I would like to say keep fighting for what you believe in, and that you will be safe. And even though everyone is trying to put it against you, you know that you're trying to fight for it back.
I'm grateful to say that I've met them. They're students in one of my financial skills class, and I have to honestly say, after the skills they showed me yesterday, they don't need my help for a lot of things. They just needed some guidance. These women are amazing. For as young as they are already, they're far more mature than I was at that age, and for that I'm grateful, and it does give me a lot of hope for that fight for femininity in that narrative for the next generation. So in any way that you need my generation to help you, let me know. I'm also very grateful for our men too. There's a lot of men that wish they could be here, including my sons and my husband. There's a lot of men that have gone on. There's a lot of family members that have gone on. I too have lost my sister and lost my brother, both from substance abuse. My mother still struggles with it sometimes. We as Native communities know that we don't just have one circle to hold, but we have two: modern society and our own traditional cultures. And it takes an amazing amount of strength and balance to be able to balance both. And you know what? Sometimes our loved ones can't. So I pray for all those that wish they could be here, or we wish they could be here in one way or another. I pray for all those that have taught us and experienced in both the bad consequences and, even when you make the good decisions, the good consequences of them. We're gonna be here for a few more moments. And then in about 30 minutes to an hour, we're gonna walk to Auraria campus. We wanna hit the youth. The point of this is to continue the narrative. We want them to see, but we also need the youth to pass it on in education, in knowledge, and in intention. So I invite all those that can, or can ask those to join us later, to please join us there as we march down this way. Is any other organizers who'd like to join, come up and speak on your cause for clean air, on your cause for climate justice, on your cause for social justice? Any reps from XR? Oh, no. Yeah. I think next time.
I didn't plan this.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm representing XR. And I joined XR because not only do they care about the environment, but they care about the way they have 10 principles, and they have to do with how people communicate with each other. We are a nonviolent organization, and we want to be nonviolent in our speech and our actions at all times. Even in the face of violence, we believe we turn, and we will not meet violence with violence, but we will meet violence with love. And that's what we need for our people too. All of us are people, no matter where you came from, where you're born, where your ancestors came from. And we all need equity. Equity for not just the people, but for the environment and the ecological systems. You know, they made poor corporations have the same rights as human beings. Why don't ecosystems have the same rights as human beings? Why can we go over and mow away a whole wetland area just because we can? They have the same rights. We can't survive without our wetlands. We can't survive without all of Earth's creatures. We are one with them. And we have to start acting that way. We have to give up the capitalist ideal where if I have more, I'm doing better. And move to a place where we can share everything. We have to share Earth's resources. We need to share the space. And we need to find a way to stop fossil fuels. The fossil fuels are feeding capitalism, and they are also destroying the planet at a rapid rate. So those are kind of the things that Extinction Rebellion stands for. We do have 4 demands. And number 1, we need our government to tell the truth. They've known for over 40 years. There are Indigenous people that knew since the first day that we walked onto this continent that we were destructive. We need to act. Our second demand is to act now. We can't wait. We've waited too long already. We need to act. We need to build solidarity with love and justice. Number 3, we need a people's assembly to overlook everything that our government is doing, because they have showed us that we cannot trust them. 40 years ago, oil and gas knew what was happening to the planet, and they did nothing. Reaganomics came along, and our gas mileage in our cars was cut in half. And that's because of selfishness and greed. We need to give that up. We need to work together with our ecosystems. And the 4th demand is for climate justice. We need to make reparations where we can, and we need to, I'm going to say it again. Ecosystems should have the same rights as corporations, maybe even more, because they're more than just people. We are one planet. This is our home. We need to start loving it and treating it as our mother. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing I'm trying to learn and understand based on my own biases is the importance of bridging communities. Bridging communities in unity and solidarity. But for that to happen, I need to mention this first because, well, I'm Indigenous. So, for us to forgive, I ask that allies be forgivable. And for you to be forgivable, you have to be accountable. And for you to be accountable, you have to understand that reparations, access to land and land sovereignty need to be renewed. If you or any generations before you have built your wealth and affluence on genocide, well, understand accountability as your generation now, and understand reparations needs to happen now. The Indigenous community, the stewardship of the land, and those that want to bridge and be forgiving need to see that forgivability first, so that we can bridge those those communities, so that we can provide that unity. I ask another youth to come speak up, to give her account on what it means to be Indigenous to her, and to it then. You can put it right there.
Hi, my name is Kaya Duran, and I'm a student over there at Adams 12, APAC County.
My name is Johanna Flood. I also go in Adams 12. Yeah.
So I wanted to speak for a little while because today I went to school with this I went to school with this red handprint on my face, and kids were staring at me and kept on asking me what was this for. And I told them it was for Native I can't say it, but missing and murdered Indigenous women. And they didn't even know that Native Americans were still here. We need to stand up and show them that we are not gonna be quiet. We need to stand up together, not individually, because we can stand strong together, powerful than anyone. What I also wanted to talk about is how these schools show how Native Americans are. They don't say the true meaning, what happened to us, how the white people that colonized us, they killed us and they almost wiped us out, but we're still here standing strong. We need to show that we are still here and we are gonna stand strong, better than before with technology and what these young people can do, like me and my cousin here. We are gonna, if we can stand together, we can help the water and the pollution in this air, because the kids at my school, they didn't even know any of this was going on. They thought this world was still clean and protecting us. But people like the government and stuff like that, they are trying to hide this from us. The pollution in the air, the oil spills. My mom has taken me to many protests to show me how we need to fix this world together, though. Thank you. You got anything?
Also, another thing is our schools that we go to now don't recognize Native kids and the Native people that are in their district. Like, I recently got called a redskin, and they didn't punish or do anything about the kid. And I also got called a savage the other day, and still nothing has been done about it. And it's kind of just disappointing to me, and it's disappointing to the rest of my family, and how we don't want to even be in our community no more because of this.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to everybody that are here, taking time out of your day to just come here and support us. I know it's a lot just to come here down in this downtown. So I thank you a lot. It means dear to my heart. Thank you.
Are you listening to them? Did you hear what they said? They still have to grow up with their identity being questioned, being asked who they are, and this is how they pray, this is how they dance, this is how they live, this is their way of life. And it's not represented. It's not represented so much that I was just at the Capitol building talking about the importance of Indigenous Peoples Day, and even still now, we have to compromise with, well, St. Cabrini Day. Now don't get me wrong, I was raised Catholic. I did all of my sacraments. My mother actually asked me all the way to the confirmation, and I promised her that I would because she converted and I love my mother. So I just did it. But I also grew up with a lot of ceremonia, and I was very lucky. I was very lucky to have actually gone to Mexico and understand those ceremonias and what they mean to me in my indigeneity. And I'm thankful for my father for teaching me that. I'm also very grateful to my mother showing me a different, more gentle, colonized perspective. Yes. Yes, please. The Consulate General is here. Please, I ask you to come forward. Yes.
The Canadian Consul General is here right now, and he is about to speak, I think.
And I think it's very important
talking to this, and we'll switch it back.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Hello, everybody. I'm Stéphane Lessard. I'm Consulate General of Canada here in this building, and we have an office here. We represent Canada to Colorado and surrounding states. I just wanted to come down with a couple of colleagues and honor your commitment by listening. I'm not here to talk too much. I'm just here to acknowledge the importance of the issues that you're raising. These are issues that are important in the United States. They're important in Canada. Our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has acknowledged that there is no more important relationship for the government of Canada than the one with First Nations and Inuit people in Canada. We are engaged in a intensive reconciliation program, activity with our Indigenous populations. And this is a complex thing. It's not easy. It takes time, but we're making progress. And again, I just wanted to thank you for your commitment to these fundamental issues. And if you have any messages that you would like us to bring back to our government, I'm happy to take them.
How can we reach you to show you those issues or to amplify them on a platform like that where maybe we can have more open discussions? All right. How can we have more Indigenous identity involved in politics so that they can have more sovereignty over their land and resources in Canada?
I don't know the answer to that because only the official spokespeople for the government can voice on that. But I'm happy to I would be happy to receive your questions and pass them on to our government in Ottawa, if that makes sense.
How can we serve over those questions? Oh wait, we have questions. Come here, within the realm of the discussion.
So this is Alex with Consulate. I'm in Denver, Colorado.
What does reconciliation of genocide mean?
Folks are asking the Canadian consul here in Denver some questions. He just came down from the office building behind us.
We have a reconciliation process. The genocide question is a separate question, very complex, and I apologize I can't engage on that. But we have had, what I can say is, the issue you're addressing now, which is murdered and missing Indigenous women, I know there are aspects of that are important in Colorado and other states, but I can tell you that in Canada it's a serious issue. We are taking it very seriously. We have the government appointed a commission to study this, and they produced a report that is over 1,000 pages of analysis and testimonials and recommendations. This is an issue that has seized the whole country in Canada because it's so important, and we need to make more progress, and all the key players, including law enforcement, are engaged. So this is something that is a process in Canada, and we're engaged in that process, and we will make progress.
Is law enforcement not an extension of genocide and the legacy it's left?
I can't validate the premise of your question. Law enforcement in Canada plays an important role to maintain law and order, but they are doing it with increasing training about the issues that affect Indigenous women. And if you read the report, and I would encourage you all to read the report, there are direct statements about the progress being made by law enforcement, but the need to do more. And so I'm not pretending it's all fixed, but there is progress and a determination in Canada to make progress on these issues, including by law enforcement.
So again, this is the Denver Regional Consul General of Canada speaking. His name is Stéphane
Lessard. About respecting Indigenous rights?
Again, I'm not the best person to address the complexity, all the aspects of this question. There are historical, legal, societal, sociological aspects of all this. All I can say is that the government is committed to a meaningful reconciliation and a dialogue that is fruitful to actually make progress. And progress will take many years, but also it has many dimensions. For example, the government is steadily removing the boil advisories in many Indigenous communities. That's tangible progress on the ground. But it's a very multifaceted question, and all I can say is the government of Canada is committed to making progress on all these issues in a real dialogue with First Nations and Inuit people.
So what is the progress of keeping clean water for the people and keeping their land pristine, as well as their air? Because those are part of the Indigenous rights, is that they have access to clean lands as well as water and air. So those are fundamental infrastructures for Indigenous people that are very important to intact as well, to be progressive on those infrastructures and not the other.
The government of Canada is directly engaged in addressing many of these issues. I don't know all the details by memory, but I would direct yourself, madam, but also anybody else. There is a website called www.canada.ca, and under that you can find all the information about the tangible things the government of Canada is doing to improve the quality of life, working with Aboriginal populations. But it's not done unilaterally. All this is done in collaboration and with participation from First Nations and Inuit people. But there is a lot of detail on the government website about all these measures and the progress being made on water and other matters of safe housing, for example, and other aspects of infrastructure to improve the quality of life for Indigenous people in Canada.
So what is the Canadian government doing to address a lot of there was recently some decals made, and there's a lot of jokes going around Canada about running over people that are blocking the railways, and what is the media doing to make sure that the truth is being told out there and not dehumanizing the Indigenous people for just trying to protect their lands?
I cannot speak to what the media is doing because I'm not involved in the media. What I can say is that the government has been very clear that everybody's rights need to be respected, and there's only a one way forward in resolving those issues. It is through negotiations and peaceful, productive dialogue. And we in Canada recognize that there is a constitutional right to peaceful assembly. We also recognize that there is no right to disrupt legal commercial activity, including rail traffic and so on. So again, the proper way of resolving those tensions, those issues, and reconciling these different priorities is through dialogue. The government of Canada has been engaged with the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs specifically, and First Nations generally, about many of these issues. Progress is being made. You may know that there's already a possible agreement to resolve the Coastal GasLink grievances of the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs. The dialogue is continuing. There is no final agreed solution yet, but dialogue has been fruitful. And in Canada, we believe in resolving issues productively and peacefully through dialogue. And it seems we're making progress. So I think we can be hopeful going forward.
My name is Kara. I'm a Canadian from Iqaluit Nunavut, a settler Canadian who grew up in an Indigenous community in Canada's Eastern Arctic. And I am here obviously to support the Wet'suwet'en from abroad. I really wish I could be in British Columbia. When you came down here, you said that you would be willing to convey any messages that we have back to the Canadian government as you represent them. And I would love for you to convey this message from us to take RCMP off Yinta land immediately. And there are five youth who were arrested last night by the RCMP. They did not have their rights read to them. And they are still not released. And they are land defenders practicing their Indigenous rights. I would like for you to convey that message that this is why we are standing here today. The Indigenous youth are standing in Victoria, British Columbia, because they do not want man camps on their land, for more women to go missing, for more women to go murdered. But just as the land is an extension of them, we need to respect everything that is involved in their culture. So please convey that message. To have Justin Trudeau and John Horgan meet with the hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en. That is very important, and that is why we stand with the Indigenous youth of Wet'suwet'en here in Denver, is to support their message, which is just asking for a face-to-face consultation, which they have not been given. I really appreciate you coming down here and showing face. Really grateful for that. Yes. And please convey those messages, yes. Thank you for listening.
I sincerely mean it, Kara, and to everybody, thank you for your commitment to these fundamental issues. We are engaged, in Canada, we feel those are very important issues. We're engaged in productive dialogue with all the vital forces involved, including the Wet'suwet'en, hereditary chiefs, and other First Nations and Inuit, to make meaningful progress, and with determination to do that through peaceful, respectful dialogue. So we will convey your message and others we have received. And again, thank you for your commitment to these issues.
Thank you. We do ask that you be an ally for Indigenous rights. Thank you.
So the Denver Regional Consulate General of Canada, Stéphane Lessard, just came down from his office up on the 26th floor of the building behind us, and he just answered some questions and spoke with some folks here who are rallying in solidarity with the Wet'suwet'en Nation.
And I always will for the sake of solidarity, but I hope to most of all transform this into actual action that changes what we're used to in the forms of colonization. So I'm really grateful for that openness to come down and still acknowledge us right here. I ask those that have been laying on the ground for the dying to go ahead and stand up, please. I know that ground is probably cold and hard. Everybody, please give them a round of applause. It's commitment that's lifelong and is also a way of life. So I'm very grateful for all those that accept their indigeneity and their responsibility to the earth in their own way. So thank you all that have done the die-in. Yes, sir. I ask that the women here sing a song together to wrap it up for a minute while I close off the circle, and then we'll head off to Auraria campus. You know? Do you want to leave her? You don't want to sing? Girls, do you want to sing a song? I know we need to sing something.
We are still in Denver, Colorado, outside the Denver Energy Center in downtown. And folks are going to be wrapping up this rally outside the building where the Consul General of Canada resides, where his office is, and he had just come out to speak directly with some people here.
That song is for missing and murdered. It's Remember Me. And I thank you girls for being here with your energy, your pure intention in that way. Being put on the spot every time I've done it. So thank you. So I ask all those that are interested in going to Auraria campus to please stay. We're going to be heading this way in just a hot second. We're going to start packing up our things and organizing. And I thank you all for being here. I'm grateful that we were able to access a platform of communication, but I do ask that all of you, both individually and together, go to your local hearings now. Wet'suwet'en is also on our way too. We're fighting the same issues. It's important that if we're gonna stand in solidarity, that means also stand up for something where you're at. I ask you to take what's called ganas. That means the desire that you find in this, wherever you go today. Take that ganas with you. Take it in the circles that you touch. If you're a student, educate those around you. You can become a teacher real fast. If you're a leader in your community, or just an elder in your family, or someone that holds infrastructure and loves those circles around you, I ask that you educate everybody around you on what's going on at Wet'suwet'en, what's going on in Colorado Gas. Also on Monday, there will be a hearing at the Capitol at 1:30 about the Colorado air emissions, and yes, Colorado air emissions, and I will be putting more information for those that want to go for Brighton, Thornton, and Commerce City hearings. Yep. Right now, a lot of people are being pushed because of gentrification out to those suburbs, and where are they putting those fracking wells? So I highly suggest every one of you take that action, even if it's only you showing up to those hearings, because a lot of people are banking on you not to care to pass those permits. But one person being there, one person saying something can be enough to at least prolong it and bring attention and awareness to it. So I ask that you take that ganas where you go. And I'm grateful for every one of you. Thank you for being here, and please join us if you can in a march to Auraria campus. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much.
Alright, cool. I'm gonna post something on Frack Free Colorado.
Okay, cool. I mean, I'm done here, so.
Hey everyone, this is Alex with Unicorn Riot. I'm here in Denver, Colorado, where there has been a solidarity action rally outside the Denver Canadian Consulate. In this building, right up here, on the 26th floor, is where the Consul General of Canada in the region of Denver is located. His name is Stéphane Lessard, and he actually came down to speak with the people rallying here about 10 minutes ago, and he answered some questions some Indigenous folks had for him, and people reiterated the messages of the Wet'suwet'en First Nation of having the RCMP leave, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police leave their land, as well as their other demands and messages. They were reiterated by the folks here. This rally also comes after discussions have been temporarily stopped between Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs and the Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation and Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. The discussions were temporarily halted because a draft arrangement was created concerning Wet'suwet'en rights and title to their land. And now clan members are reviewing that draft. In a joint statement by the parties involved in the discussions, they mentioned that this arrangement for the Wet'suwet'en will breathe life into the, I'm not going to pronounce this right, I'm sorry, the Dalgamok Gizdowa decision, so that future generations do not have to face conflicts like the one they face today. As the late Chief Wataquets, or Pat Namox, said in the Dalgamok case, it is up to us to create a new memory in the minds of our children. And that decision was made by the Supreme Court of Canada in 1997, which recognized in a lot of detail the Aboriginal title of people in Canada, of the First Nations in Canada. However, that has not really been upheld. So that is why the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and oil and gas companies have been able to continue to go on unceded land, because that decision has not been upheld. So this rally was to shed light on those discussions, as well as the continued fight against the Coastal GasLink pipeline project by TC Energy, formerly TransCanada Corporation. And the Wet'suwet'en have been trying to prevent this specific pipeline project, of accessing their territory from at least 2015, when the Unistoten camp was created. And the Coastal GasLink pipeline doesn't even have all of their permits in order to begin construction, yet they continue to keep trying. So folks here were highlighting all of those things, spreading that message. There were about 50 people who rallied outside the Denver Energy Center today. They also spoke about missing and murdered Indigenous women and Two-Spirit people. There's actually a clothing rack I'll walk to right now that has articles or dresses in red and black to represent people who have been missing and or murdered. Let's see, one of them is Barbara Keene, and it explains the connection between ecological degradation, systemic racism, economic inequality, and social inequity, and how they're all deeply interconnected, and how this is what contributes greatly to Indigenous women who are murdered and gone missing. There's a statistic that Indigenous women are murdered at a rate more than 10 times the national average. Another piece of information they share on this little sheet attached to the dresses is that at least 2,654 immigrant children were separated from their parents or caregivers as a result of the Trump administration's policies. A third piece of information is a quarter of black women in the United States live in poverty compared to 10.8% of white women. So they're definitely trying to bridge a lot of these interconnected issues together at this rally. I believe some folks here are going to march to the Auraria campus, which is a college here in Denver, to hand out flyers and spread this information more there. Thank you everyone for watching. This has been Alex with Unicorn Riot. If you appreciate this coverage, you can go to unicornriot.ninja and click on our Support Our Work tab and read all of our other content that exists on our website. We really appreciate all of your support, and it's how we're able to cover events like this. Thank you.